All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Underground QA podcast, a podcast about quality assurance in the video games industry. My name is Chris, and my pronouns are he, him. And we have two fellow QA professionals that are going to be joining us today, and I will let them introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Ariel Smith. My pronouns are she, her, and I am a senior test lead at Bungie.
Hey y'all, Sarah Gallardo. Pronouns are she, her, and I'm a senior DevQA Analyst at Bethesda Game Studios.
All right. And a disclaimer, all individuals appearing on the podcast are not doing so as official representatives of their respective companies, and the opinions expressed here are their own.
They're mine, all of them. Yours, your opinions, Sarah's opinions, they're all mine.
They're all Ariels. You heard it here first. All right. We're so happy to see everybody today, and so happy to see the both of you today. This is a great, beautiful Sunday morning. And so today we're going to focus on, actually, it's not beautiful. It's raining out. It's gross. Or at least where I am. All right. So today we're going to do something a little different. We're going to actually try to do a live test plan. So we've had many discussions about QA practices, processes, and techniques. But today we're going to see what we can do and like put one of them into action. So the Underground QA podcast is going to write a test plan for a game live on stream. All right. So the first thing we want to do is give a little bit of a recap. So to remind everybody that we have done test plan episodes back in season 1. We did episode 6 and episode 7, our 2-part series on creating test plans. We will put links in the Twitch chat.
Doing it live.
All right. Put those in there. But yeah, please check out episode 6 and episode 7, wherever you get the podcast to listen to or to watch on YouTube or wherever else. Check it out in the archives on Twitch. But that's where you can get a good recap of how we went over test plans. Just also want to remind you that what we do here today is just one way of kind of working through a test plan. There are many ways to do it. In fact, in episode 7, Chelsea walks through the idea of a visual test plan using like Google Slides, which is really cool. I tend to do more traditional, here's a document. You could use like wikis and that formatting too. So this isn't the be all end all. This is how we do test plans. In fact, this is the way that we're using today. Is a little different than the three of us are used to. I mean, I think we were just talking about that before, right, Ariel?
Yeah, like definitely. We're gonna be throwing post-its up on a Miro board, and I'm definitely more used to the kind of traditional, write a document that summarizes everything, and usually kind of throw that into a Confluence page or something like that. But I think this is a good way to do it collaboratively, which is what we're going to be doing today.
Exactly. Is this kind of like same thing with you, Sarah?
So I do PowerPoints, but mine aren't nearly as robust as what I think we're going to get into today. So I'm pretty excited to kind of try this out for the first time.
Nice. I think you and I should chat more about PowerPoint test plans because I want to get more into that. I like the visual idea better.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Oh,
if you want to, there's just this person we know named Chelsea who knows
oh,
all.
Chelsea. That's her name. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. I will. I'll talk. I'll get information later. Okay. So the game that we've chosen, considering this is a live stream and we don't want to do something too complicated, we're going to do Slither.io. For those of you who haven't played that before, it's a little web-based and mobile-based game. We have a little snake that you move around on a map eating little dots of light. And there are a bunch of other snakes that are other people playing in little dots of light. And if you slam into another person head first by accident, you get eliminated. And or you can cause someone else to hit you, and then you take all their little bits of light that they leave behind, and you end up growing your snake bigger and bigger and bigger until you are the biggest snake, or until you get wiped out. Let's see. So I'm going to do a little bit of a screen share, if you don't mind. Here we go. I'm going to click the button. I'm going to click this. I'm going to click this. And here we go. Slither.io. It's happening. All right. So, looking at the splash page here, it's just, we've got some social media stuff. You can mess around with skin. You can, more social media stuff, change graphics quality. I'm going to make my name. There we go. That's a very good name. And we're going to play. Bam. So we've got our little snake going around. He's a beautiful little blue boy named Derp, and he's going around looking for some points of light to eat. Oh, look, here's another snake. Whoa,
Nom, nom,
and I'm
nom,
out.
nom, nom.
Well, and that's the game.
That's the game right there in its entirety.
Bam, done.
It lasts 10 seconds. You know,
Rip.
if you're a scrub, I guess.
Yeah, I
Ouch.
guess so. And if you're a scrub, thank you. And then it
Yeah.
brings you back to this screen. Here, let's jump in again. Let's see if I can be a little less worthless. Okay. All right. So what are you all thinking right now? Just kind of taking a look at the gameplay and seeing what's going on. See, I'm just using my mouse to move around, and the little
Yeah.
dude just kind of follows the point.
Yeah, so the big thing that stands out to me is that if all of these other snakes are people, then a lot of the kind of core features of the game can't be tested just as a single player person. You'll need either multiple people to test it, or maybe some bots or something that you can have roam around to act as fake snakes.
Definitely. So something we'll have to keep in mind when building out our test plan is wanting to put together asking questions about automation.
Yeah.
Definitely, because we might not be able to have. Let's see, how many people can we have in a match at once? And looking at the UI on the bottom left, it says how long your current snake is and your rank amongst snakes on the board. Apparently, you can have 500 plus other snakes on the
Wow.
board.
I wonder how big the play space is to allow all those people.
It makes me wonder. So on the bottom right, there's a little mini map that kind of shows. I think it shows where you are. I think the lit, like the more bright. Here, I'll use my little mouse. Right down here, the little white is where you are at any given point. Let's see what happens if I go this way.
Yeah, it's pretty big. Can you get to the edge of the map? Can you reach the edge?
I think again, yeah. Let's see. I'm closer to the edge than I am to the middle. Let's get a few things. Oh, getting bigger. Here we go. Size is 218. Looking at the leaderboards, some big hoss here is 39,000. Oh my goodness.
Wow. Oh, there you are.
Here's the edge. I found it. Let's see what happens. Whoa, you don't even leave anything. You just leave
die.
the map completely.
I wonder if that's intentional so you don't lead other people to their own death.
Interesting. All right. So cool.
Yeah. Another thing I'd be curious to know is it a single play space, or are there multiple play spaces that are all contributing to like the same leaderboard?
Ooh, that's true. Like, are there multiple maps going on that have a handful of snakes going simultaneously? So you get the multiplayer, but it's not 500 of them at once.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
This is a pretty big map, but I don't know. I have to imagine that they're not just always throwing everyone onto the same space.
True.
Like, maybe there's only one space right now because their map size is capped at 500. But you know, if they had like a rush of players, they wouldn't keep throwing them all into the same space.
No, that's a good point.
Or maybe they would, in which case we should like potentially test just how many people can you have on the same map before it starts to break, and then maybe we cap it and say no more people can enter the game. There's too many already.
Oh, maybe. No, these are great questions to ask. All right. So before we go further into questions, let's take a look at what's left here. So there's the social media stuff. Then there's changing skin. So it looks like I can get some random color. Oh, wow. Oh, man. Okay. And then you can build a slither. Ooh. I think there's all sorts of stars. There's all different like metallic colors.
It's funny to me that like they have all of these options, but they start you off with like the most boring skin options possible. Like, but then you get into the game and you're like, oh my god, all these other people have these really cool skins. How do I get those?
I am noticing the only way to get out of this screen is to save. Think about that one. All right, let's throw Derp in there one more time. Oh yeah, there we
look
go.
Look how cute you are.
This is adorable. Look at the little starry butt. That's so fun. Oh, I like it. See, now I can actually see how the different colored sections come out. That's really cool. So what I want to see. Oh, here we go. Oh yeah. Whoa. Oh no. This dude wants my number. No way. All right. No. Oh.
Oh wow, that was a
That's
close
it.
one.
That's one. That one's aggressive. Whoa, going fast. All right. So there's like, look at how big this one is. Wow. Wow. Yeah. Whoa. Oh. Oh. All right. So I think we played a bit. We have some initial questions. So why don't we jump over to our Miro board? So what we want to focus on here is we're going to use a style called FLURPS, which is an acronym for functionality, localizability, usability, reliability, performance, and supportability. Now, each of these areas want to prompt certain questions from us, from QA, that we want to bring to our developers. Some initial prompts here that are put in. We have, so let's start with functionality. So as QA expectations and questions to ask will be like, do we have functional requirements that tell us what to expect when the user uses our product? So that would be design documents, wouldn't it? Probably. Things about like, do we have design documents to tell us, yep, design documents will design functionality, and we know what audience we are targeting, hardware, specs, accessibility. So what are some things that we would put under functionality that we'd want to like ask questions about and take a look at?
Well,
I'd be curious. Oh, go ahead,
look,
Ariel.
I was just gonna say, like, I would potentially start with like what are the core rules of the game, like
Mm-hmm.
things like when a snake runs into you, making sure that it actually does explode and create all of those little sparkly things for you to claim. Um, and that, like, when you start over with a fresh snake, not like your previous big monster snake that you had in the last run, and
Yeah,
just
we want to make sure that core loop happens.
yeah, making sure the core loop happens and that the core rules of the game are being followed.
Nice. I think that's a great idea. All right, yeah, let's put that up there as opposed to things we should be paying attention to for functionality. That core loop.
I'm
Sarah, what
curious
was?
also. I don't know if this really applies here, but so we've all called those balls of light different things. Like
Mm-hmm.
Ariel's called them sparkly. I've called them shiny. Chris has called them balls of light. I wonder if we have a standard lexicon that we use when we talk about the game.
Ooh, that's
Yeah.
really good. That's just great overall. Like, what should we be using? Because that tends to happen sometimes with game development where you have the name of the actual thing, and like you're saying, everybody else's descriptive words that they just use. And then there's the code name of whatever thing's being worked on. And you have like 3 or 4 different names all going around. It's like, what the hell is this actually called, please?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, another thing we should probably talk about is like the risks associated with these things that we're bringing up right now. Like,
Yeah, definitely. So,
one
what would
of
be some
the
risks in the core loop?
yeah, what would be a risk of the core loop? Well, like the game does not uh essentially like if the rules of the game are not being followed, then what is the game exactly, right? Like uh yeah, so game doesn't game maybe
Mm-hmm.
because the rules aren't being followed.
I
And
think
I
that
think that
works.
would result in it being not fun, right? Like if I'm playing a
Mm-hmm.
game, I want the sort of core assumptions I have about how the game works to actually like be true, right? Or else
Mm-hmm.
it's going to get frustrating really fast. um, Another risk would maybe be if QA or other folks don't have a understanding of like what the actual design is. So if we say don't have a design document, then I might not even be able to tell whether or not the game is gaming successfully because I
Mm-hmm.
don't know what the rules like what it's actually supposed to do.
Right. Well, that's a good point.
So I'll put
Any
lack
other
of
risks?
documentation.
Oh, lack of documentation. All right, so you're throwing these down here under risks. Yeah,
Yeah.
lack of documentation is huge. That can be a huge risk, and that kind of goes along with what with the needing like a dictionary or lexicon,
Hmm.
um that Sarah was mentioning, because the documentation can help focus everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, and without a dictionary, you could lack some traceability in the bugs and grouping them together and figuring out where you've got issues more
Exactly.
than other areas.
Right. Let's see. Hardware. So I definitely think like with different talking about like hardware and platforms and things we have to worry about. So this has what is it? It's mobile and web. Oops. There we go. I got to remember I have two screens here.
Oh
So
yeah, I
I'm
forgot this was a mobile game too.
gonna... Yep. So mobile versus web. Those are things we have to think about with wondering what the target audience is, what kind of specs we want it to be, what kind of accessibility is definitely a huge thing. Accessibility options.
Mm-hmm.
What happens if someone's colorblind? Is that really going to be a problem here? The controls that we want to use in order to actually like the controller input from the player. Like what other controller options are there? Like mouses seems pretty good, but what else could we use? What that could pull from the mouse input?
Yeah. Um.
So we have the leaderboard system that's tangential to the core loop, but it's definitely part of the player experience.
So would that be part of functionality, or would that be jumping ahead to things like usability?
The
Like
leaderboard?
the
Well,
oh
I
wait, I'm
mean,
sorry. What UX? Where's UX? Oh, I lost it.
I mean, I think that like whether or not the leaderboard is functional, right? Like,
Oh yeah, yeah.
is the leaderboard doing what it's supposed to do? Like that almost certainly falls under functionality. Um, Something that might be like usability is, you know, is it easy to understand the leaderboard and how it works? Like, if I look at the leaderboard, am I able to tell like how am I supposed to be able to get onto the leaderboard? Is
Mm-hmm.
that clear? And I think in this case, like it does seem pretty clear, right? Like you have a score. If your score is high enough to be higher than other people's scores, then you would expect to be on the leaderboard. So, um, if that if that was somehow like not clear or otherwise kind of obscured, like how exactly it worked, like if for example I saw people on the leaderboard that had lower scores than me, then I would be confused about like how exactly the leaderboard is working. And maybe that is how it's supposed to work, but if it's not understandable, like if it's not intuitive, then that
Mm.
would be like potentially a usability issue.
Well, yeah. Let's take a look at the leaderboard again. Let's just jump in. So the leaderboard shows up in the top right, fades in a little bit. So you don't actually see yourself on the leaderboard unless you're in the top 10. But you can see where your current status is on the bottom left. So testing that functionality would be interesting. We'd probably have to like automate some stuff, put in some bots that were already at certain or little profiles that were already at certain level to make sure they populate right. Whoa. Gimme, 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 gimme. Whoa, everybody's in here. Oh, yes. Yes. There we go. Big snack, big snack. Whoa. Whoa.
I keep having these snakes who just like complete like they're so big they just can completely surround me and create this like giant circle around me and then you
Yeah.
just can't get out.
That's the pro move there. Kind of spook them a little. There we go. Get out. All right. What else are we seeing here that we should be going over? So the next part that we should talk about is localizability. So this is what are the requirements of releasing in different regions? Are we considering like legal limitations? What about like language?
Yeah. So what are some of the risks there, right? Like if if we say wanted to release in a country where, people don't speak English, if like we don't have a language option for them that makes it understandable, then, they might not stick with it because it's a little frustrating to not understand the language that the game is in. I think
Exactly.
because this game is as simple as it is, it would probably be relatively easy for folks to figure that stuff out. But there's more to localization than just languages. There's also like country-specific requirements. As an example, in Germany, you can't have like things like swastikas in games at all. Even if the game was, say, a game where you're running around killing Nazis, you would have to find some way to like make it clear that they were Nazis without actually showing the image of a swastika, because that would be a violation of the legal limitations in Germany.
Yeah.
Um,
So cultural sensitivity.
I
Mhm.
could see, for example, in this case, maybe there would be some countries that would like. It's hard to imagine this, but maybe there would be some countries where like certain like skins aren't allowed in this game, like because like what if, for example, there was a skin that was like the Taiwanese flag,
Mm-hmm.
and China might not be a huge fan of that appearing
Yes.
in their version of the game. So a potential localization issue would be like making sure that the Taiwanese flag doesn't show up in the Chinese version. And that's a terrible example, but I'm really kind of stretching to think of how Slither could
Yeah.
could could break a localization requirement.
Yep. I was thinking about that too, and that kind of like this kind of bundled together. I want to put it in as a risk, but I want to bring it up here as the inappropriate names and color combinations. So like I was thinking that exact same thing with color combos. Another example of with cultural I'm going to put that down in risks. Another example with cultural sensitivity is, if I'm remembering this correctly, in China, you're not really supposed to display bones or skulls. So
Yep.
that needs to be a check with anything that are cosmetic related that's going out, or because you're not supposed to show that, and that is a cultural requirement.
Yeah, it is like human bones. So if like
Yes.
your
Thank you for
worm,
that.
if your snake had like a snake skeleton, that might be okay. But if for some reason it was like a human skeleton, like like you had a skin that made it look like your snake ate someone, um, for example, like that might be inappropriate.
Yeah. If you could manipulate the color combos to look like a human femur or a skull, or
Yeah.
look like it ate somebody, man,
Um,
that's a goal.
Yeah, but even more than are the flags allowed is, are the flags correct?
that's
Like,
another
if you're
good point.
saying it's a Greek flag, is it actually a Greek flag?
Yeah,
Mm.
they might take issue with that. What else? There are sometimes with localization, there are like requirements around, language in terms of like, not using vulgar language, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So we might need to have some kind of profanity filter on the name creation, and
Mm.
that profanity filter might vary from country to country. I mean, obviously because the language does, but also like each country and culture has like a different sense of what is and isn't vulgar. Just
Mm-hmm.
going back to like the
Yeah.
skeleton thing. Um,
Exactly.
so that would
Yeah,
be something you'd have to consider.
going back to name entry, can you enter, I don't know what the term would be, non-Roman characters?
Ooh.
Mm, yeah, that's another good point. That's actually something where a lot of like name entry options fall down in games. Um, and so like there that then there would be some countries where people just couldn't enter their name.
Mm-hmm.
um
Eh,
and that's no bueno.
there we
So, kind of higher level, are there like legal considerations like GDPR, collecting data, that sort of thing?
Yeah. um
go.
Also monetization, like different countries have different rules about how you can monetize. So if we were to
Mm.
say add some kind of gambling mechanic for getting skins, um then that might be prohibited in certain countries.
It's
Um,
true. Like if you could purchase like a skin bundle or something, like, is that
Like a
okay?
skin lockbox, basically,
Yeah.
is what I was like thinking. It's interesting that such a simple game has all of these different considerations in it.
Yeah, it really can. It really can. Yeah. All right. So let's move over to. So that was good. So we've taken a look at functionality and localizability. Man, that's a great word. And have looked at a few risks that we think of and some areas that we are going to want to test and ask questions about. Excuse me. So let's move over to usability. So like QA expectations here would be: do we have the requirements on defaults? Like when you turn on Slither.io, what is the default setting? What's your default snake? What few things? Now, luckily it's small and there's not a lot of things we have to worry about defaults. But what's the default graphics setting? Do these work for the majority of users? It's a web-based game. I mean, I'm at this point in 2022. Hopefully, people who would want to play this on like a browser, the browser could handle it or the computer could handle it. I know when I was playing on my laptop, I have like an older, like just kind of low performing laptop, just for like small work tasks and things. It was starting to the fan kicked in. It sounded like a tiny jet engine when it got to like big snake, and there's a lot of snakes and there's a lot of light points on there. That got pretty interesting. Usability. So, what were some observations you all had maybe with like usability?
Are there any settings to adjust speed or change your input?
Ooh, let's find out.
Yeah,
Let's see what we got. Well, you can
I
change your name.
I often prefer to use a controller for games, so I might not want to use a mouse and keyboard.
Hmm.
Um,
Okay, that's things to think about, like input device.
oh
Let's see, taking a look here. I mean, as far as settings immediately is like low graphics and high graphics quality, so that helps with performance.
yeah, I would generally put like graphic setting under performance, but maybe how easy is it to uh change settings to work for you? Could be under usability potentially.
So here's low graphics settings right now. You can see all the glowy bits aren't nearly as popping. Same thing with the snakes. It's just like enough of a shimmer to be able to communicate the gameplay.
Another thing that I don't think matters but could is if the different colors of like objects in the world have meaning. Like let's say like red dots were worth more points than green dots.
Hmm.
Then if I have if I'm red green colorblind, then I might not like understand, or I might not be able to participate on the same like competitive level that the other snakes can, because
That's a good
they
point.
they know what to prioritize better than I do.
Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe. Ooh, and this one moves. Okay. So definitely checking to see to make sure, like that's something that would probably go under functionality, is making sure there's consistency with messaging of what the different little dots do.
Yeah, but theoretically, if they were different based on color, then
Mm-hmm.
making sure there was like a red green colorblind option so
Yeah,
that
that's a great
they could
idea. We're
tell them
going back
apart.
to accessibility. Ooh, that little guy was getting aggressive and got wrecked. That's too bad. See, now I'm
Um,
doing well. Oh, okay, there we go. All right. So ooh, I think that's my best so far, at least today. All right, so let's head back to the test plan. All right. So for usability, is this product easy to use? Some things to think about. Yep, accessibility, with like color blindness. Sarah, what were you thinking?
So, just wondering if there's any like kind of tutorialization. I think when you first hop in the game, there's like a very minimal text scroll that tells you kind of what the goal of the game is.
Yeah.
So if the
so
game's easy enough to understand without a tutorial, maybe just making sure that it is the case.
Yeah, because this is a pretty simple game, right? Like it seems like part of the core aspect of the the game is it's very approachable. So if you had like lots of weird esoteric rules, like the color points being or the points for different colors mattering,
mhm.
then that might make it feel less approachable.
I'm gonna throw in the Fatui in there for tutorial, along with tutorial, because like your first time user experience, do you get that tutorial one time only and then that's it? Good luck, or can you access the tutorial anytime?
Excuse me. Um, Yeah, another thing that might come up is if like the controls were really awkward.
Mm.
Like I don't know if you're familiar with the game QWOP, but in QWOP like you have to control each of your limbs with like a different button. So like when you're trying to just walk normally in QWOP, it's very
Mm-hmm.
very hard. So in QWOP, that's a core aspect of the game and why like and its design, right? Like the designer intentionally wanted to make a really awkward game.
Yeah, exactly.
But I don't think that's the case here. So if you had to like press a different letter, uh, in order to like move, and every single time you did it, you had to press a different letter or something like that, or you just had some kind of weird, complicated control scheme, um, that might cause you to say that you're not succeeding on a usability level. Because I think one of the core aspects of this game is it's very approachable, right? Kids can play it,
Exactly.
adults can play it, everyone can play it.
Yeah, it's appeals to everyone. Anybody should be able to have access to it, and it's also free, so everyone can just play with it. If you have access to a computer or a mobile device.
Yeah.
So that was one thing. Is the where would that go under? Maybe that's later. But I was thinking about was also like just mobile versus web UI and controls. Was what's the difference there? Where are things placed on the UI in order to make things less intrusive for mobile, or a little easier to see and get a hang on than you would with a web browser and vice versa.
Yeah. So like another question to ask ourselves here is how would QA test for that, right? Like
Mm.
who is the arbiter of whether or not a product is easy to use or not? Because like I might say that co-op is a very easy game to play because I'm able to do it. So, but maybe my experience is not the same as other folks or even the majority of users. So, what is testing that look like? It might look like doing like play tests with your dev team, or play tests with potential users.
Mm.
There are uh, so some companies have something called a usability lab, and that's where they'll have like a single person, you know, basically sit down and play the game,
Mm-hmm.
and then they'll watch them play it and look for like places where they're consistently getting frustrated when they try to do something, right? Like if every time I tried to speed my snake up, I like winced or otherwise like looked really awkward, they might look at that and be like, okay, what's going on with the controls there?
Yeah.
Or where are people looking on screen, right? Like whenever they try to open up the menu, are they like is like their mouse moving around awkwardly for a little bit before they finally go, oh, haha, it's over here. Um,
Mm. And like
so
watching what buttons do they hit in order to try to do certain things that might be familiar from other games.
yeah,
Like using your example with a menu. Like, do they immediately, if they're on a web browser, they immediately hit escape to try and bring up a menu,
yeah,
to change a setting or something? Like,
Mm-hmm.
can you even do that?
yeah. Um, yeah, like definitely like the layout of the UI and is it in kind of a intuitive way that's not a functional issue, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
the UI being functional or not is if I click the menu button, does it open the menu? But it being usable, like having good usability or not, that's like if I want to open up the menu, is it intuitive to do that? Is it easy to do that? Is the icon like maybe just too small, so I have trouble clicking it and it takes me like 2 or 3 times? Like that kind of thing. That's more along the lines of usability.
Yeah. And by
Um,
testing this kind of stuff and really checking into like these things that we've all been brought up so far, we're really pushing, like asking questions to the team, like how can we improve the quality overall?
yeah,
Like this is all pushing toward making it a quality product.
yeah.
Right.
So actually, I just wanted to kind of jump back to localizability
Please.
real quick. How would we test localizability? Um, I think probably the first place to start would be like we need a list of all the different countries that we're going to release this in,
Mm-hmm.
and then we need to know what the legal requirements for web browser games in those countries is. Um,
Like what? Yeah, listing out what we need to test this, listing
yeah,
out like what countries we plan on launching in. Maybe there's some requirements in some countries that just make it, honestly, we just can't. We don't have the bandwidth to adhere to requirements, um, or it's going to take away from what the initial intent of the game was, and we can't. So we need to make sure that we're finding out what our actual goal is, so we can make sure to test for that and build out test strategies around it.
yeah. So one way that you might plan to do this is you might say, well, we're going to use a company that does localization testing for all of the countries that we're going to release in.
Hmm.
And as a part of that, they're going to look at whether or not we meet those legal requirements and whether or not the game is correctly translated. That is actually part of the reason why I think a lot of companies use external companies for
Mm-hmm.
localization testing in particular. Is
Mm-hmm.
you don't just have someone in your company who like speaks every language, right? Like that's not like typically a resource that companies possess.
Mm-hmm.
But there are specific testing companies that like that is their job. They test localization. And so, a part of our test plan might be we're going to utilize those countries to make sure that we're appropriate, or we're going to utilize those companies to make sure that we're appropriately localized.
No, definitely. What do you think,
Yeah, they
Sarah?
probably have everything set up to like VPNs, whatever you need to actually mimic being in the country while running the product.
Ooh, that's a good point. Right. Let's bump down to the next part here, reliability. So this is looking at failure. What happens when things go wrong? How do we make sure that things continue to go right? So let's see. What are some things we have to think about here? Oh, Ariel making some adjustments.
Oh no, I was gonna adjust this to match what you were saying, but actually you nailed it on the head. Um, but yeah, so like, how do people report bugs? Is a great
Mm.
answer. And then going back to usability, how do they know how to report bugs? Like, is there a bug report button maybe, or are we going to
Hmm.
direct people to the forums? How are we directing to them to the forums? Is that like, are they told that somewhere?
Yeah,
Um,
those are great things to ask. Definitely throw up some post-its about those. Let's see. Looking here, I don't think you can access a menu while in game. I think you're in it. This is live. Let's go. Online multiplayer.
I mean, yeah, and you probably don't want to report a bug while you're playing anyway, because you'll just get murked.
Yeah, that's true. All right. So let's say I just completely blow it. All right. And oh no, I think I saw a bug. Let's see. Well, we can go to social media. We can change the skin again. We can change the graphics quality. That's cool.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like that might be the way that they
Yeah.
expect people to report bugs is on social
Yeah,
media.
might be social media. So let me click contact. Cool. All right, so that might be it. Media and business inquiries. Okay, so for like advertisement, whatever. But yeah, it looks like as far as bug reporting, maybe you're right. Maybe the idea is let's give them social options, and if they have a bug, they'll tweet at us or they'll go on our Facebook page.
Yeah.
That's definitely a good question. Is like, is this what we want? We want to have a bunch of tweets of people who are finding bugs. Cool. That's fine. Social media manager is going to be busy.
Another potential issue would be like server instability. So, this is a multiplayer game, obviously. So, what happens when people are not able to like matchmake and get into the game with other people? Um, how do we communicate that to players?
Mm-hmm.
How are we like? Do we have some kind of pop-up message that appears when they enter the game? It says the game's currently down because it's busted or whatever, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
how are we making sure that when the servers are down, we're not like uh, turning players off from the game entirely because we look like we don't know what we're doing or something like that. How are we making sure that when the server goes down, we know about it, right? Is there some
Mm-hmm.
kind of automated message that goes out? Do we get paged, like that kind of thing? And then what is the plan for addressing those problems? So we talked about this a bit in the test plans episode from episode 7, but um, like what is our run book, our playbook for all the things that can go wrong, and then what is QA's role in like making sure that we understand what the problem is and have successfully fixed it.
No, that's an excellent point. Yeah, everything around the communication of what to do when something's wrong is huge.
So, things that we might do is we might have some kind of server stress test to make sure that when the game goes down, we know about it.
Mm-hmm.
Also, we might want to ask questions like, uh, when there's an issue, is the leaderboard like saved correctly? Like, if say like the leaderboard is a persistent leaderboard that is like an all-time leaderboard, not just like a right now leaderboard, how do we make sure that we're not losing that information when the game goes down? Or
That's a
is it
really good point.
because like in MMOs, for example, if you have issues with your database, and people lose items that they paid for or
Mm-hmm.
lose items that they spent 50 hours grinding for, um, it's probably going to be pretty bad
Yeah.
if you lose all of that, right? So you'll want to make sure that if there's something that goes wrong, can you roll back to a previous instance of the server? Is the information saved when the server goes down? That kind of thing.
No, that's excellent. Yeah, that's a really good point. I remember there were some fixes that would have to go in for when I worked on Rock Band that would end up, on usually be like regular purges of the leaderboards for like seasonal changes. But then sometimes they would have to put in a fix that would just wipe the leaderboards. And it's like, well, sorry, friends, got to start over earlier than we expected. And boy, did people get hurt about that. Understandably so, because if you are just completely destroying people on a certain song with your crazy high score, and then that gets wiped out prematurely, feels bad, man.
Yeah.
Feels real bad. What do you think, Sarah?
Oh, I think Ariel nailed that one. So I don't have a lot to add there. Just kind of capturing kind of what we talked about.
No, I agree. I agree. All right, let's take a look at performance. Oh, man. So, scalability, latency, loading, alerting. Like, how are we going to test this? So, my immediate thought here with this second bullet is tools. This is something that we just need to think about in general, and performance definitely. Like, what kind of tools are we going to use to measure this?
Yeah. Browser compatibility is another thing.
Mm,
Like, is this does the game perform differently on Chrome versus Firefox? Does
yeah.
it perform differently on certain mobile devices?
Yep.
So something you might do for performance testing is making sure that the game hits at least 30 frames per second on 10 different kinds of mobile devices, for example. What is the min spec for this game? Do you have to be on at least a iPhone 7 for it to run well? Um, and then do you want to like try and make that better, or
Mm-hmm.
or would you rather just say like no, if you have an iPhone 6 it's just not going to work? But like that kind of performance testing, something called compatibility testing, making sure the game is compatible with a wide variety of platforms and devices. um, and so for my test plan, I might not have those devices. I might not have 10 different phones. Or maybe a part of our strategy is we have every dev in the company test it on their phone, and then we make a list of all the phones that we tested that way and see
Mm-hmm.
if we feel like we've hit a broad enough swath. And if it's the case that we feel like we haven't, then do we need to go out and buy devices? Is that something I'm going to have to count for in my budget? Or am I going to instead again reach out to maybe an external QA company that specializes in this kind of thing and has a bunch of devices and say, hey, can you test the game on all of these different devices? We want to make sure we cover these ones. And that's a thing that they typically, again, because they specialize in it, they'll have the resources for that maybe a small dev team wouldn't.
Yeah.
um
And one thing for like with mobile testing, like having the budget to go out and get like devices. Usually, if a game is going to be on mobile, you do at least have some budget. So you have to do a little bit of research, figuring out what is the min spec device for this, and what device can we go get that will represent that min spec. And you try and get like a low, like a min spec, a mid range, and then a high end. Um, and just do a lot of testing on the low and mid range, because most people are going to have that. So if you're
yeah
really limited, being like, okay, let's get a few devices, and then like you said, like have all the rest of the development team jump in. We're like, hey, everyone, put the build on your device. Let's see how it runs.
yeah and then we also talk here about like latency and load.
Mm-hmm.
So if the game has 400 people in a specific instance, does it become unplayable? Because there's just the server is handling too many actions at the same time.
Mm.
Um, there
Does
are
this blend into your posted about server architecture, Sarah?
Yeah, a little bit. So with a game like Slither, we have to remember that we have a client and a server, and both have
Mm.
to be tested independently to some regard, and both will have different performance concerns. So understanding kind of that architecture, like is it one big server, is it distributed, is it peer to peer, that will all affect kind of how we test.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's a great point. So that's really like kind of focusing in on like people who have that specialization to think of those kind of things. Be like, all right, we're putting this up on a server. What kind of server are we using? How is it going to affect different people? That's really good point. Hopefully, having people in our QA organization that can focus on that and have the technical know-how to dig into that kind of stuff, get those types of reports, and be able to flag issues.
Yeah, and we touched on it a little previously, but
Mm-hmm.
load testing, like, are we gonna get that many bodies, or do we need someone to create bots or like ghost users that can mimic a player?
yeah.
Mm.
And yeah, and or maybe we want to like do some kind of beta test or closed beta test where we say, we send out keys to 500 people and we're like, everyone, we want you to jump on and play this Saturday at 1 p.m. so we can stress test the servers, that kind of thing. So we might be looking to players to help us with
Mm-hmm.
that kind of load testing. We might be looking at bots. We might be looking at, again, hiring an external company where we're like, we're gonna, pay you to have 500 people jump on for like 2 hours or something like that.
Got it.
Again, it would kind of depend on our budget.
True. You do what you can with what with what you have.
Yeah.
Scrappy.
But yeah, I would definitely be asking about bots for server testing for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially considering the way it's looking with like, look at this. If you look at the bottom left of my screen, 500 of what I'm sharing, like almost 600 people.
Yeah.
It might be 600 people. It might be, God, it's already broken 600. It might be like, this makes me wonder, like, what happens? Where are all these people? Like, is it just because of what it shows on the screen? Do they phase out snakes that are just too big or too small in order to like help with this with performance? Like, those are my questions. Like, what are we doing to be able to have this many people on a server, but show, and how do we show that? And what happens if they all go to the same spot?
It's
I'm so
interesting.
curious about that.
I only have like almost 300 people on my server. So I think we answered the question of, is it a single instance or not? And the answer is no, because you have a lot more players on yours.
Mm-hmm. All right. So let's move to the last part of this structure. So with this format, excuse me, with supportability. So I guess I jumped the gun with tools a little bit. So like, do we have the tools to support our players? Like, how can we get that information for testing? How will we ingest player experience in our testing? How do we know who is using our product? So this is starting to look into things with like being able to test analytics. That's the first thing I'm seeing here.
Yeah.
Like, what kind of analytics are we putting in? How are we going to test those calls to make sure that they're going out? And what do we do with that feedback when we get it?
Yeah. Also like things like live support. If people say aren't hitting a bug, but for some reason they're unable to like play the game or enter the game, how can we tell them whether or not they're using the wrong browser or an out of date uh, piece of hardware or something like that? How can we help them like figure out how they're able to get in the game? Is that an FAQ? Is that like customer support representative that they can reach out to? Is there a forum that they can go on to ask questions? And if there is a forum, who's able to access it? Is it available in every country that the game is in? Is it localized for those different countries? That's kind of, again, like a lot of these
Things are going to
sections kind of
overlap. Yeah.
tie into each other, right? Like there
Mm-hmm.
is a degree of relation between reliability and supportability in the space of like monitoring the game for when it fails and then making sure that we're communicating that to players.
Mm-hmm.
Similarly, there's relation to like functionality and things like performance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we expect that people are able to change the graphics of the game, and if they're not able to change the graphics, that is a functional issue. Um,
Yes.
and being able to change the graphics might change how the game performs for them, right? Um, so yeah, there's as much as we're like throwing things into discrete boxes here,
Mm-hmm.
there is certainly an extent to which there's a lot of overlap in these sections.
Yeah, exactly. If anything, these kind of help us focus a little more about what kind of things, and being able to find that overlap is fantastic. Maybe even making things more of like a Venn diagram. Like, okay, if you are using this kind of Miro board as an example, right
Oh
now we
God.
have color coded each of us. So it's like stuff that I've thrown in there and stuff that Sarah's thrown in, and Ariel. But maybe we make it so that way a color is, hey, it's going to hit these two areas. Hey, this is going to be supportability and localizability
I
or
was just trying to
functionality.
imagine a 6-circle Venn diagram. And oh my God, so horrifying.
Okay, so maybe that was the wrong visual choice. it was too pure that it just became overwhelming. But
yeah.
But that's one of the beauties of like finding a test plan format that works for you and kind of shows and conveys the information that you want to show, because it's not just for you to kind of keep notes of like, okay, here are the things that QA needs to worry about. It's more like, here are the things as a product and as a project we need to worry about on this team. And that's where you have Chelsea's the way Chelsea's put it about your test plan should be a living document. Your test plan should be constantly being updated as new information comes in, and it should be shared with the rest of the team, because it's not for you, it's for all of you, everybody to see what's going to be tested, how it's going to be tested. What's going to be tested, what concerns we have as QA. Strategies is how it's going to be tested. But with the plan, you want to make sure the rest of the team knows, like, these are the concerns QA has, these are the things we should be worried about and we should be talking about. Keeping things updated. What was it? If you stop updating your document, you've created murder, or committed murder, created murder. You've committed murder. I think that was the way that Chelsea put it. One of my favorite things.
Yeah.
All right. So we've got a good start. Like like we said at the top, like, we're not going to complete a test plan, but I think we got the ball rolling. We started thinking about different areas we'll need to start considering, and some questions that we want to ask the rest of our dev team about specific areas if we were to be working on Slither.io. Excuse me.
So if let's say that we had to take all of these like questions and things that we're bringing up and to turn it into a skeleton of a test plan right out of the gate, like what would that look like? So going back to functionality, what are the specific tests that we're running to make sure that the game is functional, right? Well, we would probably have some kind of plan for testing changes as they're added to the game. So that might be writing test suites for new features, like if the skins thing was new, or when that was made, I might put together a test suite that makes sure that when you add skins to your snake, they appear in the game, that they appear to other players. So we would have like those kinds of feature suites, and then we'd also probably have something like a smoke test to check the general overall functionality of the game whenever we're about to do some kind of release, or maybe we're gonna demonstrate the game in a playtest to some investors or something like that. We want to make sure that the game is presentable. So we'd have those kinds of like specific targeted functionality tests, and then also more general tests to cover like again, sanity checking the build to make sure that it is overall functional and we haven't broken anything, doing that kind of going back to like the difference between verification and validation, validating that the game still adheres to the functional requirements, and then verifying when changes are successfully made. So that those are the kinds of things I would put in my functional section of the test plan, right? We're going to be running these tests. And then
when we actually start writing out what the test strategies are and the areas that we are going to be covering and how we're going to do it, definitely those are the things that we want to be thinking about for functionality.
Yeah. And then for like localizability, again, like what is our plan there? We might divide it into what are we able to test ourselves internally, and what do we need to reach out to some external localization companies for help with. And how much of that are we going to do? Are we going to do like just a single pass, or are we going to routinely go back and have them run passes whenever we make major changes to the game, right? You'll want to account for that in your plan. And then bouncing over to usability, what kinds of tests are we running there to make sure that the game is easy to use and user friendly. I would probably be looking at doing some kind of user play test, dev play tests, and otherwise trying to elicit feedback from people about how easy to use is the game.
Sarah, what would be some of your next steps with a few of these areas?
I think my next steps would be just chatting about risks and kind of ranking those, like we've discussed in previous episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nice. Are there any other risks that we haven't covered so far that we might want to bring up with the dev team?
Maybe building the game sustainably, like for instance, if we're building in a language that's gonna phase out support, like Flash did, are we making sure we're planning for that?
I'm zooming in. Wow. Building with sustainability in mind. Good call.
Another one would be just general internet outages. We've had a lot of those recently. Just DNS is going down. What happens then? Are we still making money? What's the plan to kind of get us back?
Yep. Definitely a good old AWS crashing and killing itself and having to deal with that. Everybody has a problem when AWS is down. All right. I think we have the great beginnings of a test plan. This definitely would want a little more work, but I think with putting an hour into it and collaborating, I think we've hit a lot of really good areas, brought up some really good questions, and things that we can bring forward to the development team to continue fleshing out our test plan.
Yeah.
Great job, everybody. There you go, Slither.io. You're welcome.
Yeah, we wrote a test plan.
Anyways, I guess we can kind of wrap things up here. Thanks, Ariel and Sarah, for hanging out today and building a test plan for Slither.io. Thanks everyone who watched the cast live or is picking it up on where you get your podcast or watching it on the VOD on Twitch or on YouTube. Again, apologies, I pushed the wrong button. It's new. We're using a new toy. Okay, so I'll wrap things up. We'd also like to thank everybody for listening. I'm reading the script. I'm sorry. If you have any suggestions for future topics or bugs of the day, we'd love to hear them from you. If you're a QA professional and would be like to be on the cast with us, we'd love to hear from you. Please reach out to us. Our contacts are undergroundgameqaconf@gmail.com, or reach out to us on Twitter, which is @undergroundqa, because we'd love to hear from you and collaborate. We also have our Discord. So the link for is our link for our Discord in our socials?
Yeah.
Should be.
Yeah.
It's
So please jump in our Discord. It is full of some bright and vibrant QA professionals that are always chatting about all sorts of things, from spicy conversations to professional chats to sharing pictures of their pets. It's great, and we've had a good time so far.
yeah.
We also are putting up a survey that should still be up there, and we've been getting some feedback on because we want to actually make the Underground QA Conf actually happen at some point. So if you see the survey link in our Discord, please fill it out. We'd love to hear some feedback so we can start organizing a conference. It would be great because that was our initial intention. So let's see if we can make it happen.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that we might look into doing some kind of a we're probably looking at like a virtual conference as opposed to an IRL conference, but we'll see.
Exactly.
Like that's good information to give us on the survey is would you actually go to a live conference? But yeah, also one of the things that we do in our Discord, and I love plugging this because it's such a great thing to take advantage of, but we have a channel where you can have other folks look at your resume and give you feedback on it. I think that is one of the things that people have found extremely useful about our community, because there's tons of folks in there who are actually hiring managers in QA at different companies. And so they have lots of really great advice about how you can make an awesome resume.
Definitely. Any other plugs, Ariel?
Uh, yeah, I guess even though I have to say again that I'm not an official representative for Bungie and here on the podcast, I do want to plug that the Witch Queen expansion for Destiny 2 is out. So go check it out. It was a huge effort on the part of our team, and I think it's probably one of our best expansions yet.
Nice.
So if you're a Destiny fan, I strongly encourage you to go check out the Witch Queen. It's awesome.
Definitely. Yeah. Grats to the entire Bungie team on that. launch.
Yeah.
Awesome job. Sarah, anything to plug?
Just a quick one for my team at Bethesda, who consistently crush it and are amazing.
Oh, I love it. I love team shoutouts. I love my team too. You're all great over on Fortnite QA. You're doing awesome. Keep killing it. All right, friends.
I do
go ahead.
have a bug of the day, and it's
Do
a
you?
Slither bug
Oh,
of the
good.
day, as it turns out. I'll link this in the Twitch chat, but there is a video of someone who managed to have a immortal snake. So they're like just running around absolutely murdering everyone because they can't be killed. So go check this out. I'm gonna link it here. Although I don't know if that actually links in the Twitch chat. I think that links in. Can you post that in Twitch? I'm not signed in.
Yeah.
I just posted it in
Copy
our
and
Riverside
in the Twitch
chat.
Boop.
There we go. So yeah, that's a video of someone running around with an immortal snake, just passing right through other snakes because they can't be killed.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a fun one.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Troll face. This video is ridiculous. So that's up in the Twitch chat. Please have a look if you're watching the VOD. All right, friends. I think that brings us to the end. Thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate you. And per usual, just want to say thank you. Keep playing, keep testing, keep washing your hands.
Yeah, still wash your hands.
Please.